Developing news out of Worcester County tonight. Charges have been filed in connection with the 2024 death of State Police Trooper recruit Enrique Delgado Garcia. We turn to Western Mass News reporter Addie Patterson live in studio with the details revealed during the State Attorney General's press conference today. Addie, a lot of information coming out of that.
That's right, Amanda. 4 Mass State Police troopers all indicted on charges of involuntary manslaughter and causing serious bodily injury to a person in a training program involving physical exercise. Among the 4 is a sergeant who's facing an additional charge of perjury.
He was a son, a brother, an uncle, and a friend. Enrique should be alive today.
Massachusetts State Police Academy staff Sergeant Jennifer Penton, Trooper Edwin Rodriguez, Trooper David Montanez, and Trooper Casey Lamont all facing charges in connection with the death of trainee Enrique Delgado Garcia. 9 months of investigation with a special statewide grand jury and 150 witnesses culminating in the state's Attorney General's announcement Monday.
It is our responsibility to ensure that our inspiring officers at the Massachusetts Police Training Academy are protected from preventable harms and to seek accountability when serious incidents occur.
25-year-old Enrique Delgado Garcia died after a boxing match, a routine training exercise at the State Police Academy in New Braintree in September 2024, which the independent investigation revealed was under the management and supervision of the 4 troopers indicted. Delgado Garcia was knocked unconscious and suffered from what the state lead investigator described as a massive brain bleeding. He died in the hospital the following day. Massachusetts State Police responding to the charges in a statement reading in part, "Today is a difficult and somber day for the Massachusetts State Police as we continue to understand the events that led to the tragic death of Trooper Enrique Delgado Garcia. In the period since the tragedy, the department has taken several steps to strengthen training at the academy, including commissioning an independent review by the International Association of Chiefs of Police and expanding support for recruits." Delgado Garcia was part of the 90th recruit training troop set to graduate less than a month later. He had also graduated from Westfield State University's criminal justice program back in 2022. Massachusetts Attorney General Andrea Joy Campbell addressing the charges, saying accountability is essential when lives are lost.
There is nothing more serious than the loss of a life. We can both honor the men and women who serve while also still ensuring accountability within a system, especially when someone dies.
During today's press conference, officials made clear while there was evidence of reckless conduct, there was no indication any of the accused staff members acted with intent or malice. Officials also said that Sergeant's perjury charge was related to falsehood in her testimony to the grand jury. Reporting live in studio, Addie Patterson, Western Mass News.